Hey, we're here with another episode of Rock Fantasy Files, and tonight we're going to talk about the mighty Pantera, and a band that practically held mainstream metal in the United States on its shoulders throughout the 90s because, a lot of bands with the grunge coming in, and then Pantera came out of nowheres, and they were doing the arenas, and of course, with the brothers, Dimebag, Vinnie Paul, the brothers Abbott, and Phil Anselmo on vocals, and bassist Rex Brown. They really set the world on fire with the albums. Of course, they had the albums that were hidden that they still never really wanted you to see. And I can't believe that those weren't officially reissued still. But, everything from, Cowboys from Hell and Vulgar Display of Power, and as it goes on, they just became a bit larger than life. And of course, Dimebag tragically killed after the band's breakup. But Dimebag and everyone that ever met those guys, I never got to really meet them, but anyone that's ever met Dimebag or Vinnie Paul, they always just how hospitable they were with everyone and all the bands. So I thought we'd get together tonight. And hey, Chris Caffrey's just joining, and I'm doing the intro. So Chris, you're just in time. And I just wanted to do a show to honor, the memories and the legacy of Pantera, a band, like I said, that got a lot of us through the 90s. And Chris has a couple stories that he wanted to talk about with, I guess you must have met them, right, Chris?
Well, yeah, they actually have. Pantera were really, really, really big Sabotage fans, and we knew them. They came out, the first time I ever had met the brothers was actually on the Mountain King tour, and I think they gave one of us something they had recorded then. But when we came back to play with Testament on the Gutter Ballet tour, the brothers were hanging out with us, and they had just finished Cowboys from Hell, I think, and they were telling her, like, no, you're gonna love this record. It's really heavy. It's really heavy. And me and Reaver were like, yeah, right. And I listened to it, and I was like, holy shit. But they were always really, really into Sabotage. And when Dime passed away, I was out at the NAMM show, and I hadn't seen Vinnie since the old days. Really, it's been a while since I saw him. And I said hi, and he was walking away back towards whatever it was he was doing at the time. And he called me back. He's like, Chris, I got to tell you something. And he said that he wanted me to know that on the Pantera, or the tour bus, not Pantera, the night that Dime was shot, that before they went on stage, the last thing that he ever listened to with his brother, they were listening to the Hall of the Mountain King album. Of course, my dog is barking. Quiet.
Major.
But that's what the very last thing that the brothers had listened to together was the Hall of the Mountain King album. So he stopped me to tell me that, and I thought that was pretty cool. Obviously he's gone too now, but that's something that really struck me pretty hard. I mean, they were big Sabotage fans, and they always came to see us. And I don't even like to pick songs or records with them because I don't know if I have a favorite. I just love every single thing that band ever did. There's something about them that just freaking, every time I listen to it, I get excited. It's just that band has something about that music. And you watch some of these videos, they'll show up on your feeds, and no matter what you see, they'll come back and you just watch them. They were just badass. They were a badass band. I remember the last time I saw them live, I think it was at the Hammerstein in New York City, and he walked out on stage, Phil, before they started playing. I think they hit some kind of chords or something, and he was like, we're the goddamn kings of heavy metal. And it's like, you know what, they were. Those four guys together were the heaviest fucking thing on the planet, man. That was just something.
That every time I ever seen him live, that was how he always started it out. We're the goddamn kings of metal.
And it's just, they were just badass. I mean, he was such a great guitar player, and he never really played lead. I mean, it's like there was some leads in those songs, but there wasn't a tremendous amount of what a lead guitar player likes to do for leads. He just did it when he wanted to or when he could. But if you went and watched him at his clinics or whatever, I mean, that guy he was a step above everybody, man. Dime was one of those people that was just, he was on his own planet. He was always on. He never had a bad freaking night.
Yeah.
He never heard a bad note. If you did, he bent it into right. And he was a badass. And that band was, man, there was something about them. They kind of like redid that whole style. They wrote heavy in a different way. I mean, it was just something about it that I think is completely different than every other band. And I think no matter what people have tried to do, I've watched a lot of bands be imitated. Somebody writes something that's kind of like Metallica or plays something a little sounds like Sabotage. Just that no matter what anybody does, they never play anything I think is as heavy as what Pantera was when they go, oh, it's a Pantera style band. There was something that was, it was even in the groove and the way my dog is making this bone squeak. Would you?
I hear.
My dog is working up.
Easy.
My dog's like, what is going on?
Well, anyhow,
He's got this red bone. He knows what I'm doing because I've already done one of these things today. So now he's
Major said that that's enough time on the computer.
Yeah, so he's not gonna let me do this without barking at you guys. But yeah, I mean, there's just something about that band, man, and it's always gonna be one of these things where the more I listen to them, the more I like them. Even as much as I like them now, I'll listen to these songs and I'll find something in them that I never heard before. It's just, as a guitar player, you can't not find something in those licks that hops out all the time, and it's just great. So I'm gonna let you guys continue to talk about it, but I wanted to add those stories.
Brought my dog to the party. See, Daisy's here in the squeaky toy.
My dog.
He had to find the loudest toy he could find.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks. You can. Thanks for joining us.
All the dogs.
Well, then you have the 110-pound German Shepherd that doesn't want his time taken away from him.
No. All right. So cool. Well,
all right. Yeah, but that was it. I'm sure, like I said, there's nothing you're going to say about that music that I'm not going to agree with. So it's just
okay. Cool.
It's as badass as it gets. All right, have fun, guys. I'm going to close out the dog.
Later, brother.
Well, there was our special guest, Chris Caffrey. As we start the episode tonight, we got Tony Dio Leonard joining us. It's been on the show before. We've got Jonny Mop back. He hasn't been on in a few weeks. And we've got Ralph Tamborra for one of his first Zooms with us, and Steve Levin, one of the regulars. We're expecting Denny Barth, and we're expecting Brad Mader to join us as the episode goes on. So who would like to go first tonight? Would you like to go, Tony, or Ralph? Ralph wants to go first.
Go ahead, Ralph.
I just want to say, I was a big Exhorder fan. And their first two albums were just like, they were like bordering death metal, but they were still in that thrash world. And I was immersed in death metal at the time. And they were one of the few bands that were still carrying the flag for like the old school thrash. And so when Pantera hit, like, everybody made it like they were this like new sound and stuff. And me and a lot of my death metal friends, we all kind of were like, this ain't that great. It was getting played on Headbangers Ball, and it was definitely one of the better songs you would hear throughout the 3 hours of that. But when they first hit, we didn't like really appreciate it, a lot of us. And then when grunge hit, it was like metal just seemed to die on like Headbangers Ball and whatever. Like in the underground, it didn't die at all because we were just we were driving over. But so a lot of people slagged Pantera and stuff, and then when that Vulgar Display of Power came out, and that was getting played all the time, it was the only like new big thrash band that was getting played. Headbangers Ball was focusing on other stuff, and Pantera was flying the flag for like metal, and I really started to get into them at that point. And I think a lot of my friends, like, they just couldn't get into it because it wasn't like underground death metal and stuff. But I thought they were such an important band because of what they were doing at a time where metal was kind of dying, but not really. In the underground, it was not dying at all.
But the mainstream, like I had started the show with, I agree with that,
Pantera
Ralph.
was the band that kept it alive, and because of that, I've always respected them, and I really, I like the ritual and other stuff.
Cool. What were some of your what are your favorite albums? I mean, I know you just popped on this and I didn't give you any time to prepare, but if you wanted to mention a couple of your favorite, what's your favorite album by them, Ralph?
Oh, I mean, the Vulgar Display was the one that definitely caught my ear. And then, pretty much the next. Actually, I like everything that they did.
It's coming over really loud. Brad, could you mute yours down there for a second? All right, sorry, Ralph. I think something came over there.
Pretty much from Vulgar Display down. I like pretty much everything. I like it all.
Yeah.
I got more and more respect for them. They would go on tour with Morbid Angel, then seeing them with Black Sabbath when Black Sabbath did the reunion tour. Deftones, Pantera, and Black Sabbath, and they were just. A lot of my friends were complaining that Pantera was opening, but I thought they were kind of perfect because they were the band that made metal still important throughout the 90s. And that was one of my favorite shows ever. Black Sabbath played a full wasn't an Ozfest set.
Yeah.
Black Sabbath with Bill Ward playing.
Hey Brad, let me interrupt for 1 second, Ralph. Brad, could you mute your audio till you come on, because we're hearing all kinds of background noise from your thing. Someone's talking in the back.
I think that was
Let me
Brad.
figure it out.
All you gotta do is just mute the mic for a second. You had it a second ago. What? There you go. Cool. Sorry. See, Ralph, you couldn't hear because you could hear his wife or someone talking in the background. Cool. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I was just saying how important that Sabbath show and Pantera and Deftones. I mean, to see Sabbath do a full headline set with Bill Ward for the first time. I seen him on like the Ozfest and stuff, but this was like a full set.
Yeah.
It was just we took a limo to that show because it's the only time we ever took a limo to a concert because it was such an important Black Sabbath show. But because Pantera opening up, I thought it was great, and they did a solid set, and they were the band that flew the flag for the 90s, and they're super important.
18-year-old me was very happy to be there that night. The young 18-year-old me, I was very, very happy to be there.
Yeah, that was one of the shows I saw Pantera at. I saw them, of course, it was the Black Sabbath reunion tour, and with Pantera and Deftones opening up. I saw that at the Meadowlands Arena also. Another memorable show I saw with Pantera was with Pantera. It was Sepultura. Was at the Knickerbocker Arena, and I had gotten backstage passes because of Epic and because of Sepultura. So we went up and supported Sepultura, and we went backstage. And Linda and I think Biohazard was on that bill too.
Yeah, that was the tour.
Biohazard, and then I think I saw another leg of that tour down at Nassau Coliseum with a prong was with Pantera then. Yeah. On that same, I think it might have been the same tour. I could be mistaken because my mind's hazy.
They took prong out a lot too, as well.
But and then those were a couple times I saw them, like 3 times. I didn't get to see them as much as I would think I did back then. I got to see Supergiant Ritual, of course, with Phil later on and stuff like that. But,
what about when they played the Civic Center with Morbid Angel?
Yeah, and Soulfly.
That one. Center too, Ralph. Ralph, I need your notes for every episode. I'm gonna let
I
you
didn't
know.
have no notes for tonight, but I remember that one. And the one with Typo Negative at the Civic Center too was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I must have been at that one too, Ralph. Yeah, thanks for refreshing my memory.
There you go. Now your numbers are climbing.
Dude.
That's like saying you haven't seen Randy Rhoads before, or only seen Randy Rhoads a handful of times. Dimebag, Darrell.
I forgot all about that. I was just thinking about those bigger ones. I didn't think about the Civic Center, which of course I was at those shows.
I think for them it was the openers that I was going for almost more, but then Pantera always killed.
Oh yeah, yes. I remember those shows well now we mentioned. Sometimes I need somebody to mention something for me to remember stuff from back then. I'm getting old and I've seen so many shows, but
I can't wait to get there.
old. Yeah.
Yeah. Forgetting great shows.
Ralph's our local Martin Popoff. I already said that in the last episode. The last episode we did, he's got notes and dates for all the local metal shows, and it's just amazing having Ralph part of the shows. And
it's cool because when I watch the show, all I do is think about like being in the room with these guys and like just talking metal, like, and then what would I think of this or that? Or,
I'm glad you.
As I'm watching your shows all the time, I get great pleasure in what I would say,
And as my regular members of the regular panelists on the show are all back to their regular jobs of Death Angel and Immolation and Incantation and Gruesome, I'm going to be using more of regular folk to
regular folk.
no oh, get some educated fans. But Steve, do you have to hop off a little soon? Do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm going to celebrate my birthday pretty soon. So yeah, let me go and then I'll say goodbye to you guys. It's always a pleasure to be here, and probably sound like a broken record, but one of my favorite things about Rock Fantasy Files is not just talking metal with all these cool people.
Yeah, man.
Going back and revisiting bands that I haven't listened to in a minute. And Pantera was one of those bands. And man, I went back and listened to a few albums and holy hell. So, I mean, to me, the deal with Pantera is, especially as being a guitarist, when you go back and you look at the guitarists that really, really made a huge difference. I mean, there were so many great players, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, but then along comes Jimi Hendrix. And Jimi Hendrix blew everybody's mind, even the guys that I just mentioned. And he was the guy from that era that changed everything. And there really wasn't anybody, there was other great players between that and the next guy I'll mention, guys like Uli Roth and Richie Blackmore come to mind, amazing players. But then here comes Eddie Van Halen. And Eddie Van Halen just blew the mind to everybody. I mean, he totally changed guitar as we see it today. And honestly, if you look at all the guys that came after him, there really wasn't anybody that filled those shoes until Dimebag. And if you go back and you actually see some of the stories about Dimebag and him meeting Eddie Van Halen, and what Eddie Van Halen saw in Dime was a lot of himself, to the point that even though he only met Dime a couple times, he actually buried with Dimebag the legendary guitar that he played on Van Halen 2, which Dimebag had actually commissioned Eddie to build for him. So Dime has to, I'm sorry?
The Bumblebee.
Yes. The Charvel, I mean, an amazing guitar. And I mean, so you really have to say that Dime is one of the greatest players of all time. And if you watch him on stage, he just exudes charisma. And you know what? He's having fun. He's having a great time. He's playing, blowing everybody's mind, but he's having a great time. He's not concentrating on what he's doing, but man, he's doing it. So to end up my little segment, I'll just mention some of my favorite Pantera stuff. My third favorite album would be Far Beyond Driven. My favorite songs there, I love 5 Minutes Alone. My God, that song is good. I mean, it's just nasty. Phil exudes this energy, man. It's a great song. Shedding Skin and Slaughter 2 that I really love. And then my second favorite album, which probably will just surprise a lot of people, probably you, Ralph, is Vulgar Display of Power. Great album, probably their heaviest album. Mouth for War, A New Level. Once I get that song, that riff stuck in my head. It's stuck. It's stuck in my head for days. Like I have to listen to it more than once. I love By Demons Be Driven, but one of my favorite songs on that is kind of the ballady one, is This Love, because that song has this atmosphere to it. It's just like, I don't know. Maybe it was the fact that when Kelly and I first got married, she would go to sleep a little earlier than I, and I would stay up and get really high and watch Headbangers Ball. And this come on, and it just has this atmosphere to it. It really does. It really makes you feel what he's singing about, and it's just a great song. And my #1 Pantera album, after going back and listening to him, has to be Cowboys from Hell, because to me, that was the big change, that they went from those first few albums, which I actually really do like. It was a much different style, more akin to a new wave of British heavy metal. But Primal Concrete Sludge, the song Cowboys from Hell, when he brings to that lead, man, just put your mind. Probably my favorite song from them is Psycho Holiday. I mean, holy crap. And when you listen to that album, you can hear how much Van Halen inspired them.
Yeah, good point.
He screamed.
Here's some Pantera. We're talking about it so much.
Yeah, I mean, so good, man. Heresy, another one that he really sounds a lot like David Lee Roth. Shattered, which is another, like his vocals are more like the new wave of British heavy metal. It really shows his versatility. He kind of changed a little bit of Vulgar in the heavier albums. But on Cowboy, he really sang. I mean, he has a great voice. I mean, the guy really is a great vocalist. Another
Bob Halford.
Like Halford,
dude, amazing. Yeah, no doubt. Message in Blood. And man, one of my favorite songs is Medicine Man, because holy crap, if that song doesn't sound like the Medicine Man is like, I mean, it takes you to the land of the Medicine Man. It's so tribal, but of course he's not talking a Medicine Man in another country. He's talking about the Medicine Man street. But man, he really captured it on that. And that's just great stuff. Ralph, who was that handsome guy?
This is Abigail.
That's Abigail.
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 There's Puny Bear.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, he's a regular on the show. He sits behind me all the time.
Yes,
I know.
sure.
Mia's hanging out with me tonight, ironically.
Amazing.
Good.
I bring him down, but he'll eat all my toys. So anyway, guys, that's going to end what I really have to say about them. Is when I listen to music from new wave of British heavy metal, thrash, death metal, black metal, industrial, even slam metal. A lot of my friends are like, "Oh, you like slam metal?" I love slam metal. I don't care if the guy's snorting like a pig. What, the heavier, the better. I love it all, man. I have to say that, like, a lot of people would be surprised. Really, really like Pantera, but I do, man. I love them. They're a great group, and especially what Dime does. Learning his solos is just I'm just like so stoked. So that's all I have to say, guys. I'm gonna sign out. I'm gonna go celebrate. It's always a pleasure.
Happy birthday. Let's say happy
Birthday, man.
Yeah, see you, Steve, man.
Having me. And
happy birthday to
you. Happy birthday, dear.
Where's that mute button?
Come on, that was beautiful. I don't care if it was all mute. That was nice.
We love you, brother.
So I'll see you next episode. Take care. Stay metal. Support underground music and support indie businesses.
Cheers, brother. Happy birthday.
Later, Steve. Happy birthday.
Yeah, guys.
Cheers.
Cool. So that was cool. I'm gonna talk about a couple of mine. Hey, Brad, we're still hearing a lot of background talk. You got somebody talking.
Yeah, Brad thinks because he has his headphones on, that means that he can't hear.
Make it worse.
We can hear like your wife or someone talking in the background. Oh, now he left. Is he mad at me? I don't know.
Oh no.
I don't know, but you were picking up too. You could hear someone talking in the background really loud.
He had a freeway going through his house or something.
He got the headphones on, so he thinks that no one's gonna hear the outside.
Maybe he went to a different room.
Man, maybe. I mean, he does mute himself till he comes back on. But I think I'm just going to give mine real quick, and then I'll move over to Tony, and then we'll go over to John, and Denny Barth is going to join us in a few minutes. So I've got my number 3. I'm going to start with number 3. I'm going to Vulgar Display. I'm going with number 3. Mouth for War, New Level, fucking Hostile. I mean, it could be higher up. My number 2, I love this record. It's more of a Southern rock album compared to what they were doing at the Great Southern Trendkill.
Yeah.
Great Southern Trendkill. I love Drag the Waters. Like, it almost sounds like if the Allman Brothers were doing a metal show or Skinner.
That's interesting look on it.
But like Suicide Note 1 and 2, love both of those.
Man.
Like,
You're looking at my notes, I think.
It's more of a Southern feel than you got from like, Cowboys or Vulgar. And I'm going number 1 with Far Beyond Driven. Shedding Skin is probably my favorite song by them. I just thought that was just about changing and adapting to change and just shedding my skin and
stronger.
Yeah. And I'm Broken, of course, and the lovely version of the Planet Caravan, them doing that Black Sabbath tune. I thought that they did that so much justice.
Yeah.
And of course, Reinventing the Steel, I would go with Goddamn Electric and Death Rattle, my favorite songs from that album. Cowboys from Hell, of course, Primal Concrete Sledge, Cemetery Gates, which was like their like metal church kind of song. It was like their ballad. It reminded me of that time and era. And of course, what put them on the map. And to tell you the truth, I've never really listened to those unknown albums. I've heard a little bit, but not enough to comment on. And I think that's where Tony's going to talk a little bit about that. And, that's going to wrap up my segment for the night. And, cool.
You got one of them in the store right now. You got one of those free releases in the store right now.
Yeah, actually, they just re-released almost their whole catalog on vinyl, and yes, I do have most of it in stock right now at the shop, and hopefully some of it is still available on the online department too. But Reinventing the Steel and Poker Display and all that stuff is
You
out.
have one of the old ones that wasn't released. You have one of those old ones in there right now.
I don't think I do. If it did, somebody brought one in. Yeah, those are not officially released. If there was,
I have Power Metal. I have Power Metal on vinyl. I got it from Levin actually.
Oh, you do? Okay,
yeah. Straight from Texas. It was sold out of their fucking cars.
Well, that might have been a bootleg one you've seen floating around, and I don't really carry them. But yeah, that's
no, not me. My shit's real.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I got a real thing, man. I got it from Levin.
Okay, cool. And so we're gonna move over to Tony Leonard, and welcome to the show. And
Always good to be here. Yeah, I think they have just reissued a bunch of the catalog of the later stuff in single LPs, because I know they originally were doubles when they first came out a few years ago.
Yes.
So yeah, they're probably more affordable than what they were originally. But I got into Pantera. Really, it was probably about 1987. A friend of mine gave me a stack of records. They were moving, and they said, "Come get these records." I'm not going to take them. So it was a bunch of cool stuff in there. And this record was in there. Projects in the Jungle.
Oh, nice.
And I loved it. I fell in love with it. It's like
Terry Glaze.
Def Leppard. It's like Pyromania, Def Leppard, High and Dry meets like Randy Rhoads, Ozzy, and Van Halen. It's just heavy metal. You see them on the back. They were just kids. I mean, they were young kids when they did these albums. Their father had a recording studio, and he produced the records. So they may look at them as demos, but they're pretty good sounding demos for the time period, I think. I had a friend. He had the I Am the Night record, which I've got here as well. He had this one, and so we were kind of like, oh yes, Pantera, they're really cool. I kind of followed them. Well, really couldn't follow them, man. You didn't see them in magazines or anything. But I happened, I think around 1988, I happened to be in a record store one day, and I ran across a cassette of Power Metal, and love it. Yep. And it's a killer record. I put it on, and I didn't realize they had changed singers, and just Phil took them up a notch. It was more heavy metal, more in line of what thrash meets like what Judas Priest eventually did with Painkiller, which Painkiller hadn't come out at the time, but it was heading in that direction. More to some of the thrashier bands like Anthrax and Vicious Rumors, and ones that had the high pitched vocals and so forth. So fast forward a couple of years, you know, I'm going to a concert. We're going to a Kiss concert, and we went to the mall before the concert, and it was in July of 1990, and they were putting up new releases in the record shop we went in, and I spotted Cowboys from Hell on the cassette, and I picked it out, and I was like, wow, these guys got signed to a major label. My buddy who knew who they were as well, he was like, wow, that's a trip. They got signed. So we before we go over to the concert, we got in the car and throw in the cassette, and I swear when it kicked in with Cowboys from Hell, we were just like, what is this? This is amazing. This doesn't even sound like the same band. And I mean, that groove just hits you with the song Cowboys from Hell. And it was just like, wow, you know, this is something really cool. And I really think that when they put that album out, they kind of set the mark for the whole power groove thing that came in for the next 10 years or so, with so many bands followed it. And it's like Ralph said, you know, yeah, they were influenced by Ex Hoarder, and they were for sure, but nobody really knew Ex Hoarder like they knew Pantera. So they're kind of setting that blueprint, you know. I got to go see them a few months after that. They played a club in North Carolina. It's probably 4 months later or so, maybe. And it was maybe 250 there, maybe for the turnout. They were still, you know, building a following. But I was right up front. I was on Dime's side. I was climbing up on the stage and on the side of the stage and shouting out all these old song titles. And he's like, "Yeah, we don't play any of that," you know. And he handed me a guitar pick, which I still have. It says Diamond Darrell instead of Dimebag, of course, because they were still going by Diamond Darrell at the time. And so that was cool, you know. And you know, I followed them from there. I saw them a lot of times. I try to think back. How many times did I see Pantera? And I figured out at least 13 times, but I'm thinking probably more. But I saw them quite a few times as they rose. You know, I think the second time I saw them, they were playing with Wrathchild. They did a tour with Wrathchild, and they were, you know, co-headlining on that. And then it's kind of went from there. I started seeing them, you know, headline arenas and coliseums, and with Typo and White Zombie and Cold Chamber, Anthrax, all these different bands that they came through. Black Sabbath, of course, like you guys were saying. But I really, in recent years, I've gone back to those early albums and really started listening to them, you know, again, because I am a fan of 80s metal, and I'll debate all day. Glam rock and hard rock metal is two separate things, and Pantera were never a glam rock band. They were never a glitter band like Motley Crue, you know, Theater Pain, or the Poison and stuff like that. They had more in common with just straight up hard rock bands, more like Van Halen and Rat and stuff like that. It was just, I mean, everybody wore spandex, ripped up bandanas and t-shirts and so forth. And I mean, everybody had like a little bit of hairspray or something, man. But Pantera,
they were a little poofy.
They never. I mean, this is probably the most, you know, wild they look, you know, as far as that look. But I remember seeing pictures when Phil first joined the band, like in '86. He was the most glam looking guy in the band at the time when he joined. He was all frosted hair and all that, you know. But then he kind of was the one that kind of brought him to that street level too, I think, you know. So
hairdo.
So yeah, you know, it's like so when I talk about
Steve, there you go.
When I talk about some of my favorite songs, I mean, like I said, being this is the first album that I got, there's a song here called Heavy Metal Rules, which is just a great headbanging anthem. Just a really, really cool song, very simple riff, just a really cool song. We get to the power metal album, like you were saying here, you know, and there's some really cool stuff on here that I understand that it's the reason, I guess, that they won't reissue the early stuff, but they really should reissue this one because it really falls in line with what they did with Cowboys and continuation on from there. But there's a song here, it's a slow song here called We'll Meet Again, which is kind of like Cemetery Gates, the prequel to Cemetery Gates. It's pretty much very much the same way the song is. You know, it's got a brilliant guitar solo from Dimebag in here. And that brings me to Cemetery Gates, because that's another one of my favorite songs by them. I love the guitar solo in that one. That's just a great, cool song. I mean, it's a little power ballad thing and all, but I always liked the way that they did the video where they just kind of chopped off the beginning. That was kind of odd, but it worked, you know. And Cowboys from Hell is, I mean, I guess if I got to say, Cowboys from Hell is probably my second favorite, because I mean, I will say that right now, Projects in the Jungle is my favorite Pantera record. I play it a lot, and I still play it. But Cowboys from Hell is probably my second favorite. I love it despite every song on there. Domination's another great song on there. I love just the whole thrash element of that song, the breakdown at the end, almost like the mosh part at the end, and they panned the audio from left to right, so it's really cool. And I mean, of course, the title track, Cowboys from Hell, it's a great riff. It just catches you, and seeing that video for the first time, it was really cool. But yeah, you know, it's cool. Like I said, it's kind of a shame that they won't go back and reissue some of those old albums, and especially the power metal stuff, because I don't really understand what they would be ashamed about, really, because like I said, it's not. I have. It's not like they were like Total Poison or something. You know, it was just heavy metal, straight up heavy metal. The original singer, it's funny. He went on to be in a band called Lord Tracy, and like I said, I was a fan of Pantera back before Cowboys, and Lord Tracy played with Ace Frehley like in my area one time, and I went and I was hanging out with him before the show and talking to him. I had no clue that this guy was the guy from Pantera, because I would have probably definitely been talking to him about Pantera, but I had no clue at the time that was him. I think I found out maybe in a magazine later on or something. But they were the cool band that in the 90s that waved the flag for metal when bands were not doing guitar solos. Dimebag was still doing solos. I like a lot of the later stuff too. I mean, I love Vulgar, and their songs on the last few records that they put out that I like as well. I don't really go back and listen to those as much as I did when I first got them. When they were new. Like I said, I seem to gravitate back to the early years, because I mean, straight up heavy metal is my favorite genre of music. So but yeah, they were a great band, and I'm glad I got to see them as many times as I did. And it's a shame that it ended the way it did.
That's for sure. Very tragic.
Dime was probably one of the last guitar heroes, really. I mean, there's a new generation coming out now, but at that period, I mean, you really couldn't say there was a lot of guitar heroes.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of the very few bands I can think of that much popularity that had these hidden albums that people like. Everyone, a lot of people think Cowboys from Hell is the first album, because even me running the store, you couldn't get this stuff, and it was like, yeah, what's this all about? And you would have thought that they would have reissued them just for some kind of a money grab, at least, because people would have reached back, and maybe they wouldn't have liked them, but you would think that you'd want your works released in some way. I guess that's another
maybe a box set one day. Maybe they'll put a box set out.
I mean, now with both of the brothers going, it's tough,
Yeah. I know, Johnny, have you seen this? This is the Cowboys from Hell demos.
It just came out recently, right?
Yeah, that was the bonus disc in the reissue of Cowboys from Hell that came out, and they put a limited run vinyl out. Yeah, and it's the demos from Cowboys from Hell, and it's an extra song on here called the Will to Survive.
Yeah, I know that song.
And but it sounds a lot like power metal. Yeah. So it's before Terry Date came in and put his production technique on it. So it's got that power metal sound.
Yes.
More than, but so it's cool to hear the early versions of the songs, because even though they're demos, they don't sound like demos. They sound great.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I do have that. I got the box set version of that. It's
it's in the Cowboys from Hell Deluxe edition.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good song too. The Will to Survive.
Cool. That's a cool one.
I like that better than Piss. Piss was a remake of another song off of Vulgar. I forget what My Third Arm or something like that, I think. But yeah, it's the same exact guitar riff.
Yeah.
Every time I hear Piss, I get very confused because it's just not that song, you know.
And it's no telling. There's no telling what's in the archives from that period that eventually will come out. They'll probably put some
Vinny
stuff
said
out.
there's nothing left. Vinny, before he died, had stated there was nothing left, but I do agree with you. There is no telling, especially, cover stuff and everything. Yeah, you're right. But Vinny, said, as far as originals goes, I don't know if it was The Will to Survive. I think might have been the last thing that they had given us, really, as far as from the archives. That's what Vinny said. Now that Vinny's gone, who knows if they can undig.
Yeah, sad. Thanks, Tony. Anything else to add before we move on to someone?
No.
It's always an honor to have you on the show and very informative.
Yeah,
and
very well put, brother.
Love it. And
cheers. Love being here.
Who wants to go next? Brad Mader, Jonny Mop?
Either or.
Let's go to Brad, and we'll finish up with Johnny, and hopefully Denny Barth will make it before we stop recording. And Brad, welcome. Been a while since we had you on, and I know Brad, if you're not familiar, as a band Must Not Kill he's in the Tampa, Florida area, and also works at Dean Guitars. And hopefully you got a couple stories to tell us about your Pantera love and pick out a couple records for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think Levin. Oh, first of all, hey, what's up, everybody? Ralph, I haven't seen you forever, Jesus, dude. But yeah, Levin really hit on a lot of stuff I was actually going to say about Pantera, and I mean, he went into pretty much a lot of detail about that stuff. But I mean, for me personally, I mean, when I first heard Pantera, I didn't really think much of them because they were still into that, like, wasn't really glam, but it was that earlier. It was like the infancy of a band, like even like their song structures I wasn't really digging. And plus at that time, I was just seeking heavier and heavier music. I mean, Ralph can contest to that. I mean, he's known me forever, and he's seen me playing in every form of heavy music I've ever done. So for me, like when I got introduced to Pantera, I was just like, didn't really think much of it, But I'll tell you, when Cowboys came out, though, I was actually shocked it was the same band. And I was just like, who the hell is this? And I'm like, this is Pantera? I was like, holy shit. They finally caught on to like what they needed to do writing. And they kind of just really edited a lot of their songs and made it more the meat of the songs. And it paid off in the end because they really caught on to that wave of music that made them extremely popular. So, I mean, I love Cowboys. I think it's great. Vulgar is definitely one of my favorite albums they ever did. And I mean, God, my band alone, I mean, we covered, we used to do, God, man, I think there was like 4 or 5 different Pantera songs we actually covered at one point. And even down here after Dime died, I work at Dean Guitars. So, I mean, I was playing a couple Dimes and we, do a little tribute for him when after he passed.
Okay.
So, and working there too, I mean, Dean Guitars, I mean, it's literally the house Dime built. I mean, if you ever get a chance to go there, you can definitely see his guitars on the walls. And, I actually got to hold and play the concrete sledge guitar, which was
nice.
I was just like, holy shit. And then actually play his, Dime from Hell, which I don't know how the hell he played that thing, to be honest with you. I mean, that thing was so beat up. The headstock on that thing was broken off so many times that the volute on that thing on the back was literally this thick just to hold the headstock back on. But you could just tell it had that freaking thing. That's a Washburn. Throw that thing in the garbage.
I had to throw that to you.
It has to say DEAN. That's the
I know it,
thing.
brother. I know it. I bought that a long time ago. But I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely. I liked how they transformed from that earlier stuff. I know Tony likes the whole catalog, it seems like there, but for me, when I really heard Cowboys, I kind of revisited those earlier albums, And I thank Ralph for that, because he ended up getting me hooked on like collecting all the albums from every band I got into.
Sure.
So knowing Ralph, he can't help to be a collector. I mean, he's the ultimate collector when it comes to any of that stuff.
He is
But
the head collector and the head statistician for us right now.
oh yeah, no, Ralph, you need to open a museum, dude. You really do. I mean, you have so much knowledge. You really should really spread it, man. And I'm glad to see you on something like this, dude. It's cool, man. You got to be on more of them.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
Thanks, Brad.
yeah, you're
Love it,
welcome, man. But working at Dean too. I mean, after Dime passed, we also endorsed Vinnie, and he played the D drums, which we also do at Dean Guitars. And he came to a lot of the the parties we had for Dean and D drum and all that. And I got to sit with him and talk to him, have some stories. And Vinny was pretty cool. He was a funny guy. He was real genuine. I mean, every time you see him in an interview is exactly how he was when you talk to him one-on-one. And he was always good. You have a couple drinks and he tell you his whole life story. You're like, wow, this he's telling me all this. It's pretty cool. Well, my one Dime story, the only Dime story I have is I got to go see him. They were playing with I think White Zombie was either opening up or they were on tour with him. I forget who was doing what. I don't know if they were co-headlining or what the deal was, but it was at the Roseland.
Oh,
And I went down. My buddy Anthony, which Ralph knows, he got me in. We were sitting there watching the show, having a great time. And Anthony's like, Anthony was just like the life of the party. If you knew him, he was a great guy. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he's like, hey man, he goes, you got to stay. After the show, man, it's going to get nuts. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm up for that. So I'm hanging out, and one by one, everybody's kind of filtering out from the back. You see, Zombie and all them guys, and then kind of see Phil walking out. And he's kind of being a little bit of a rock star, and all of a sudden, like a blur of light, I see Dime just like running towards me, and I'm up against the bar. He's just like running towards me, and he's just like, "Hey man, how you doing, man? What's up, bro?" He's just yelling all this shit, and he literally jumped over the bar and got behind the bar. And he just like spins around. He looks at me and goes, "What are you drinking?" I'm like, "Whatever you're pouring, dude." I'm down. He goes, "You need a black tooth." And I didn't even know what the hell that was. And I'm like, okay, let's do it up.
I got a big one.
And
no, Mark Yeager was with me that night. Mark Yeager puts up pictures every anniversary of Dime's death. And it's from that show at the Roseland that you're talking about.
I've seen it. Yeah, I was there.
You were with them probably.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, after like 2 drinks, I don't really remember the rest of the night. But I was told I had a good time. But every time, being at Dean Guitars, I get that question asked a lot. Did you know Dime? And, did you ever? My only answer is he's my favorite bartender. And that's it. And it's because of that story. And it's my only time I ever met him. But yeah, he was
story.
From what I remember, he was a cool guy.
Awesome. What a great story.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But
Cool.
yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, yeah, it took me a while to get into him, but when I did, I was just like you guys, big fan. I mean, talk about Guitar Hero. I mean, you guys are right. I mean, I don't see anybody today that can play like he did. And I mean, a lot of kids now are real technical, including myself. I mean, I'm more of a technical, arpeggiated kind of player. But Dime just literally had that like bluesy soul behind his soloing. And he just knew how to hit that one note and make it
He
scream.
played metal with soul. Exactly. He played metal with soul.
Yeah, no, he was a real soulful player. And I mean, if you listen to his solos.
That and the charisma of him, like there's not many guitar players that have that charisma that he exuded.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, his personality had definitely shined through in his playing, which is, really huge when you're a musician. I mean, if you're up there and just being robotic, you kind of sound like a lot of the new metal kids are just sitting there concentrating, making sure they're playing something in a, chromatic legato scale and all that crap. And Dime just let it rip, man. He just said, screw this, I'm just going to shred it. I mean, the art of shredding. I mean, there you go, man. But yeah, he was a great player and definitely influenced my playing huge. So, and a lot of my soloing, if I get stuck on a part like in tonight, I was in the studio tonight. That's why I was a little late. Rushed over here to get on this. And
Nice.
I was actually coming up with a solo, and I literally said, "Oh, what would Dime do?" And I'm just like, okay. And I started doing some harmonics and got it done. So that's it. So big ups to Dime and Pantera, man. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. That was a great story for this episode, man.
and I'm sorry, my headphones were picking up whatever. My wife was in the kitchen. We got high ceilings here.
Yeah, like really, it sounded like you were at an auditorium or something for a little while.
Yeah,
there.
it's
That's
my.
fine.
Yeah, I apologize for that, guys. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, we muted you for a little bit. I could have muted you on mine. I forgot I could do that. So last but not least, and hopefully Denny still shows up, but who knows? Jonny Mop. He's the biggest Pantera fan that I know. Down here.
Certainly.
He celebrates with Pantera. He was a huge Pantera fan and still does all the Black Tooth stuff on Dime's birthday and his death.
Pantera lives strongly in this household. Yeah, Dimebag lives strongly in this household. I don't know if I'm a bigger fan of Dime's playing or Dime's personality. I've watched that freaking DVD religiously growing up, especially once again, I think I was around, as a teenager growing up, I got into Pantera. But whenever DVDs came out, that was the first DVD that I had. And that thing played every single night in my DVD player. I was just broken away. I just gotten out on my own. I got my own place. And that thing played so much. Every night we had beer. We watched that fucking Pantera DVD. And then everything else came afterwards after that. But so that's why, Pantera or Dimebag especially, the whole band really, watching them every night on that DVD and just, partying and just having a good time and just living for the moment and just trying to get crazy. And it was very inspiring to an already, crazy crowd that we were. And the DVD played a big part. As far as
I gotta jump in really quick. That fucking DVD where it was like the 3 VHSs in one, that was like what made me a fan of them. Like when I seen their personalities and how fun they were having and how crazy they were, that made me a fan. That
the lesson in partying. It was a lesson in partying.
Yeah.
We would watch that and we'd go, "Oh, we should do that. We should do that." And absolutely.
It was hilarious, man.
Fireworks off and fucking just going fucking crazy every night. It seemed like every night they had
I believe I was like 19, 20 years old too when DVDs were first, like 2000, whatever that was.
I love that DVD. That
And I would
DVD
go to
made
Steve and I would buy DVDs every freaking week from Steve. I'd buy as many as I could. But
where I got it.
Pantera one was number one. Pantera came first and everything else came after that.
One thing about those home videos too is, I watched them religiously when they came out, especially the first two, and you started to know who their road crew people were, everybody, because they made characters out of everyone. Yeah. And so they made sure that they gave all their crew an awesome spotlight, like especially Big Val. That was, I remember going to shows, other shows, I would see Val working security for other bands, and people were constantly going, "Whoa, Val, whoa, Val," to know that from the
boot to the cool.
So those videos were they're legendary, and the whole thing with Ingve and the donuts and all that. Ingve will never live down donuts because of that video.
Like fucking donuts. You know what? I've never gotten to meet Dime, but I've met everybody in the crew. I met Vinnie, Rex, Phil. I've met Bobby Tongs and Johnny Cat, and I've met everybody. I've never gotten to meet Dime though. I'm hanging out with Rita plenty of times. So but as you say, the crew. It's funny if I see Bobby Tongs, because Bobby Tongs photographs for Slipknot now. So if you go to Slipknot show, you can see Bobby Tongs a lot on the sideline, and any of the crew member. So my point of that is I never gotten to meet Dime, and ironically, I don't know if there's a bigger musician that's made a bigger impact on my life than Dime. Maybe Randy Rhoads, playing with Ozzy, Tony Iommi, but Pantera for me in my youth, especially, the timing was perfect for me being a teenager, and Pantera equals strength to me. So yeah, just listening to those albums just made me strong. You know, I dealt with a lot of bullying and stuff like that when I was younger. So I think Pantera and just metal in general, metal always made you feel stronger. Anything metal, Metallica, Slayer, Pantera. But yeah, Pantera had that power groove, you know, and it just gave it confidence. You know, you listen to a Pantera album and you go out and face, you know, high school or whatever your problem is for that day, you felt a little bit stronger when you got done listening to Pantera, you know.
Pantera power.
I'm 40 years old today and I still feel that way, you know. So yeah.
Wait a minute. Today's your birthday? You're 40 years old today?
No, not today, but as I talked to you for 40
Another
years.
birthday song I gotta sing? Brad, mute your
Levin's birthday.
yeah.
But yeah, that's my favorite thing about Pantera was the strength that it always gave you, you know. And yeah, less than a party and less than just being a good dude, you know. Pantera just I give them credit for all of that, you know. That DVD once again gives a lot.
John, what are your favorite albums and favorite songs?
It was freaking tough, man. It was so freaking tough. Favorite albums I'll start out with because that was a smaller number. Southern Trendkill was number one. Southern Trendkill, yeah, they're heaviest. I feel.
I love Southern Trendkill.
Yeah, their most aggressive album for sure. Lyrically,
but it's very southern. It's got that atmospheric where it kind of puts you like you're under you know, the Dixon Moss or something.
Well, the acoustic song, yeah, the Suicide Note Part 2 also helps with that as well.
Love that.
You said Drag the Waters, like Allman Brothers metal song. I never put that together, but yeah, it definitely makes sense as you say it for sure. But yeah, probably their heaviest album. And number 2, I had to go. It was tough between number 2 and number 1. Vulgar brought me to the party. You know, Walk was everywhere when Walk came out. You know, I'm pretty sure
that one was that's the one you've heard. That dun, dun,
it was a massive hit.
Yeah, it was. I think
massive.
92.7 would play Walk at times.
That blew them up and put them over the top. That song.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's not one of my favorite songs, but either. I mean, of course, I've heard it too many times. Maybe
it's not my top songs either. Don't get me wrong; it's not my top songs, but it is the song that brought me to the party.
Oh yeah,
I was too young to be into the catch.
I've seen Jonny Mop with a glass of JD and Coke and banging his head to Walk where most of the JD and Coke on the floor.
I'm getting closer where I can do that soon for you, bro. So that's number 2. Number 3 is Cowboys because I think Cowboys is a classic masterpiece. You have to mention Cowboys and Pantera albums. Once again, I think he definitely goes into his inner Rob Halford in that album. His high notes in that album are unlike any other than power metal, of course.
Yeah.
You know, the artistry and everything, the lyrics and everything. I went with Cowboys from Hell. You got to mention that. Top 5 songs.
All right.
I couldn't put them in order, honestly. I wrote them down, but I don't know if I have a number 1 or number 5.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just We'll Meet Again off of Power Metal. Definitely. Okay. One of the greats for sure. The solo in that song for sure brings me into another song, Floods. Floods was a great Dimebag played the solo in Floods forever. He won multiple guitar competitions by playing the solo in Floods when he was younger. And the lyrics to Floods, that is like a southern heavy metal song right there.
Yeah.
One of the greatest solos ever, the outro to Floods. You sit there and you just get lost in the music. That was Floods for me, especially. Yesterday Don't Mean Shit.
Nice.
Can you say more than that? Because tomorrow's the day you have to face. I couldn't help but think of that. Once again, I don't know if I can go 1 through 5. Goddamn Electric. Your trust in Slayer and Black Sabbath and whiskey and weed. Words to live by. Suicide Notes Part 1 and 2, because you can't have 2 without 1, and you can't have 1 without 2.
Me and you did connect on a couple of the same ones for sure. Yeah, cool.
Absolutely. I love Suicide Note Part 2. I don't know if Don plays acoustic on any other song than Suicide Note Part 2.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions, Becoming, Heresy, Slaughtered, Primal Concrete Sledge. The list just goes on. As I was going into my number 1, I'd have to go Floods. Number 1 has got to be was for Pantera for me. I just love that song so much. Musically, the guitar is just great on that song. And yeah, I don't know. I can't talk enough about Pantera. I love Pantera so much, and definitely I can go on for the rest of my life probably.
Yeah, we could talk for hours until Denny shows up, but it doesn't look like Denny's making it, unfortunately.
Yeah. And once again, I'm a bigger fan of Dime's playing or Dime's, attitude, his positivity. What would Dime do? Is often words that you can't help but think. Every time I get pissed, because everything pisses you off, Then you got to take a pill. You just think, because getting pissed ain't cool. Getting pissed is not cool. So I don't know. I'm a very, very big fan of Dime's attitude about that. Don't sweat the small shit. It's all small shit at the end of the day. And
True, and he touched so many lives. Dime did, and anybody that I've ever talked to that met them, anybody from all different genres of metal, from the guys in Crisian, to the death metal, to the the heaviest stuff, to the even to the hair metal and the glam metal stuff. Everyone said that they treated everyone with such respect, and just like just like your friends, like hanging out with your friends, no attitudes and everything else.
I've never met Dime, but I met Vinnie plenty of times, and I can definitely say that about Vinnie for sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I guess
I remember the Rock Fantasy had a midnight party for Far Beyond Driven.
Yes.
You remember that, Steve?
And I believe Wesley Willis was there too that night.
Yeah, he was there earlier.
Yeah, Brad, were you
Yeah,
working?
I worked that party. I was working there still.
I mean, you worked for me a lot in the 90s. How many times did we have to reorder Pantera CDs then? I mean, we didn't sell vinyl. It was just
probably weekly.
Really?
You
Yeah.
You want to talk, how they kind of like how Metallica kind of gotten so light in that time period where they came out with Black Album, and from there they really went into the commercial scene. And those people that were into that Metallica kind of Pantera was the one to leap onto, and if you wanted to listen to the heavier stuff.
The time,
of course, me and Ralph and you were listening to the death metal and the black metal, but that was the mainstream, like we've been talking through the whole
but
show.
death metal and black metal was just being born at that time. It's not like there was a history of death metal and black metal.
No, it was. There was way. It goes back to 80 fucking 5.
Yeah, but I mean, but
the thing is, let me just say though, the thing is about Pantera, the most important thing about them was that if you were a fucking Pantera fan, you found Slayer. You found Slayer, you found fucking Death. You found Morbid Angel. You found fucking
find Deicide, you find Cannibal Corpse, you find all those guys.
Yeah.
Pantera opened the portal to death metal and black metal.
Yeah.
Phil would wear fucking dark zone shirts.
Phil
would wear dark zone shirt, and he also ended up going on to play in Necrophagia, which was one of the first death metal bands of all time.
Yeah,
in my eyes, they were one of the first death metal bands, and Phil later on gets to play with them. And he got Morbid Angel to go on tour with them. Morbid Angel playing to a Pantera crowd,
opening up.
They were so important. They were so important for what they did for metal. And any fucking buddy I got to argue with, I always got to argue this shit with them, and they don't realize like how important they were. Like they fucking took Morbid Angel on tour, and they fucking played Morbid Angel in front of thousands of people, and that legacy alone is so important by Pantera, and that's my favorite thing about them. And those DVDs were great.
Especially Far Beyond Driven, like Steve said, with that Planet Caravan. As a young man that I was, I can only compare them to Black Sabbath. It's to this day, it's always for me. It's Black Sabbath 1, Pantera number 2.
How many kids found Black Sabbath because of that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's not even the song to go to find Black Sabbath from. But you found Black Sabbath because you were a Pantera fanatic And that's what
Especially as
was
a
so important
teenager
about
from
them.
that era. Once again, I feel like that band was marked for the teenagers for sure. Especially.
That's great,
Well,
man. They were for that age. That was they
Their
were the
gateway
band.
for extreme music.
Yeah. They taught me a shit ton. Once again, I can't give them enough credit.
Hey, look
well,
who's
it was kind of
coming.
like what I was saying about catching that wave.
Danny, you made it.
Yeah.
We're just wrapping up the episode, and we all gave our picks. And I'm like, well, then I was just ready to kid it, and I saw you pop on and see a message. So welcome,
guys.
Where you been?
I've been stressed. I'm usually like done work at like 8 p.m. your time, but one of my coworker had an family emergency, so they asked me to stay behind and like cover for him, right? And anyway, not that the work I do is important, but I was not able to just like leave.
Yeah.
So
Well, hey, you made it just in
anyway.
time to tell your story, and
Work is always important, brother.
Hey, I'm just happy to be here and made it.
you promised, and you teased me with some amazing Pantera stories. So let's hear a couple.
All right.
All
All right. So like my relationship with Pantera goes to like 1990. They were on tour with like Suicidal Tendencies and Exodus, and I catch that. It was the Suicidal Tendencies, like what's that album? I forget.
How I
Lights,
Left
Camera.
Tomorrow.
Yes,
Revolution.
Lights, Camera, Revolution. And
Lights, Camera, yeah.
and I think Exodus was still touring, like Impact is Eminent at that time, and like so, like I never heard of Pantera before. Like I never like knew about those like albums that they did like prior to Cowboys from Hell. So I saw the show. Thought like Dimebag Darrell was an amazing guitar player right away. I kind of like I was like, wow, that guy can play, right? And then we went backstage. I was invited by like Gary Holt and those guys, and like so like they were just like, I think at that point they were already like far beyond driven when it comes to like partying. Like they kind of like, even though they were the opening band, they were kind of like driving the bus when it comes to like having fun, like just their personality and stuff. And so like, like we hang out with them. We talk about like, I talk with Dimebag about like Kiss and Van Halen and all that. And like, just had a great night with them. And we're born like, both like Dimebag and me were both born in 1966, like a few days apart. So I don't know how that came about, like maybe like after beer number 19 or something, but anyway, we start talking about Kiss and all that. So, and like, I'll be honest with you guys, like for me, like Pantera, like maybe because I'm older or something like that, it was not always my cup of tea. They would have a good riff, like Mouth for War, like Caught Me, and they would have some of these songs, but like like I always go back and listen to like Emerson, Lake and Palmer and that kind of stuff. So like,
I just said, I think it was a young man's cup of tea at that time, especially.
That's it, right? And but I always had an open mind about music, and I always wanted to like, hey, if they, and like, then they got Far Beyond Driven, and I listened to it, but still not like into it. Then the Great Southern Trendkill again was not sold on that, is not getting me. So like eventually I know Pantera exists. They're the biggest band of the 90s, biggest metal band, and like we have common friends. Like I was like backstage with Voivod, and I met Phil. Like a lot of people were just like, hey, you're the best, and I was just looking at him like, yeah, man, you're good, but I prefer like, I don't know, Venom or Slayer. I don't know. Like I was just older, right? So then like the album Reinventing the Steel came out, and I don't know why. That album, like I fucking loved it. Not only I loved it, I did a Dimebag tribute show and played the entire album. I had to learn it. I had to like it. It's a different style of soloing and using effect and stuff, but
Every
you know, like
album-
Hellbound,
Next.
all those songs, like you know, Yesterday Don't Mean Shit, and like I learned them all. Like Al Castascido, I think is like the most Van Halen song that Pantera ever did, and it's just an amazing song, right? So, and then I caught the show again, like now I was a fan because that album. So I went to see them with like opening for no, Slayer was opening for them in Vancouver, BC. And that's what the show where like Phil went on stage at the end of the Slayer set and said, like, if you guys don't play at Down They Sleep, Pantera is not playing tonight. And he stayed there for like 15 minutes pouting on stage, being like, no, you guys come back and do at Down They Sleep or we're not fucking playing. And so like Kerry King comes out like, dude, like we haven't practiced that song in like years. I don't even know if we can pull it off, right? So he's like, well, I don't give a shit. And you can hear them talk like through the freaking PA. There's like 18,000 people there. So he's like, anyway, I don't care about your fucking issues. Like you're playing at Down They Sleep now. We're like, Pantera's not playing. I'm fucking serious. So like, you know, Tamborra comes back out. Jeff Hanneman's come back out. And they play at Down They Sleep with fucking Phil Anselmo singing.
Wow.
And it was like blood-sucking creatures of the night. Anyway, it was amazing. So fast forward to like about like 2 years ago, or like about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Every year, like I'm Canadian, so we play hockey. Like I play hockey since I've been like 5 years old, and we have a beer league, hockey league. Like we're horrible players and we're like slow and fat, but like we still play, right? And every year we go to Vegas and we have like a hockey tournament. We've been playing there for 20 years. So like one of my good friend, Frank Cusenza, from Toronto, like Vegas has got that little clique of like musician that everybody knows each other. Like Andrew Freeman is part of that like prestige little like, you know. So you know, trying to be like my charming French Canadian self. I'm start to like hang out with those guys and all that, and so meet with Frank, and then he tells me like, oh, like I've been like hanging out with Vinnie Paul for the last like 10 years. I'm like his driver, and I do a bunch of stuff for him. I live with him, and like we want to go see like your you know, we want to hang out, and you know, so they came to watch like our last like hockey game. Like we played a team from like I'd say like Minneapolis, like native guys, like super like aggressive, like, you know, like they want to tomahawk us, like they're just like super like aggressive. And they won like I think 9-0, something crazy. Anyway, we lost, but like, you know, Vinnie Paul and my buddy Frank were in the watching the game, and then we went to the Mandalay Bay, and we like partied with these guys all night till like 5 a.m. I got sick like 4 times, I think. Like I went from like drunk to not drunk to drunk to not drunk to drunk to not drunk. So I got to sit with like Vinnie Paul, and like, you know, it was like, yeah, you say you're hockey fans, but like, you know, you're from Texas. Like, I don't think, how can you know hockey, right? And he looked at me and he says like, I'll tell you that I know hockey. So he starts naming me like all the stars that like won the Stanley Cup like back in the 90s, and he pulled his phone out. He has a picture of himself with like Guy Carbonneau and Craig Ludwig, like 2 Dallas Stars at the time, in his swimming pool with the Stanley Cup. Wow. And he tells me like, you never ever tell me again that I don't fucking know hockey. I fucking know hockey. So I'm like, okay, I apologize. Like, you know, you're Vinnie Paul, like, right? Take pictures with him, like a great night. We talk about like his love for like Van Halen 2. He loves that record. Like he, you know, he says every time I'm down, like every time I'm upset about something, you know, I put like You're No Good, Dance the Night Away, Somebody Get Me a Doctor, Bottoms Up, like, you know, Out of Love Again. And he just like says like, that Van Halen 2 album can get me out of any type of situation. And I always gonna remember that conversation because
cool, babe.
Yeah, right. Like he was just like, he's just a fan. he's just like a music fan.
Yeah.
And like 2 weeks later, Frank calls me and he says, Vinny just died.
Oh, that's awful.
And like, and I was like, holy shit. Like, you know, we like, and he says like, you know, the last time he ever like partied with anybody, it was you and your buddy. And like, this
Holy
just the
shit.
four of us, a couple guys from Hell Yeah. And then he didn't feel good after that. And then he passed away. But like, so like Pantera is weird for me because like I never really gave them any respect or anything like that, just because like I don't know, it's like older guy and like, but I when I say that, like I respect their career, the work they did, their ability, like they're amazing musician and all that, right? But I think like that reinventing the Steel album and then meeting Vinny, you know, like I'll never be able to listen to Outcast of Shadow and hear it the same way because I was hearing him as a fan, like talking about like Van Halen too. Like he's talking about it like we're talking about like our heroes and stuff. And he's just like, you know, like that, like, you know, like that, the way like Alex hit that cymbal and light up the sky and like the second verse, like, and I'm like, no, but I'll listen, right? Like I'll pay attention now. But yeah, so like, and then like, you know, of course, through the years, like we since then, like, no, I started to talk more and more to like family members and people they used to know. And no, it was just like for them, like life started with those two brothers, and like since they're gone, like they're not okay with it. It's like the chemistry of their group of people has been like damage for the rest of their lives. Like so. You know, but it's, you know, I met Dimebag and we talk about Van Halen and Kiss way later in life. Met Vinny and same type of like that passion for Van Halen. Like his phone, like his phone wallpaper was like Van Halen too. And you know, like he had a Van Halen like necklace and everything. And he's just like loved that band. He says best drummer ever, Alex Van Halen. You know, like he that passion really like made me realize how much even music, how much was important to me in my life, and how much I wanted to like even do more. So that's it. That's my Pantera story.
Dude, I'm so glad that you made the show because that story's epic and it
Great.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Tragic. That's become such, you know, a friend with him and then find out that he passed. It's shocking. I wanted to add something that you mentioned that Phil sang with Slayer that night, and I think we were all in an episode talking about this a few weeks ago on a different subject where Chris Allo, who's a regular on the channel, of course, you know, renowned journalist and everything Chris has done, and he was at the final Slayer shows out in LA, and he said that during sound check that they were doing Slayer songs with Phil singing in the sound check. And I mean, there were rumors of, you know, Phil and Carrie doing some kind of a project, and because we all know pretty much, and even like Robin, who's does the show with us, said that Carrie's not done. Like Tom's happy with retirement, but Carrie is the guy that's not.
I thought Carrie announced that he had a new band with Phil singing or something.
Oh,
recently.
did he? Okay, I didn't get that, but yeah, that's possible. But,
I heard the same thing too.
Whether they'll actually do any Slayer covers when they come on tour, or whether it's just going to be original stuff.
They're going to do a band together.
Yeah.
I think it was Gary Holt as well, and maybe Paul on drums. Maybe I can't remember who it was.
I didn't hear anything else. I just know Phil and Carrie.
Well, you know, I don't know. You guys ever seen the old? There's an old video from back before Cowboys from Hell where they were playing a club in Fort Worth. And it's a whole rehearsal tape of them with Kerry King just jamming.
Yeah.
It's like 1989, I guess, or 88 or something. And it's cool because they played Rain and Blood, and he played power metal with them. He came up and played. Wow. So they've been friends with those guys for a long time. You know, I mean, you even see pictures back of like the guys from Metallica hanging out at the practice spot for Pantera back before Pantera was big, you know. So they made a lot of connections back in those days. One thing I wanted to bring up too is the bond between the two brothers. I mean, you think about it, I've heard, I think that Dave Mustaine offered Dimebag the guitar slot in Megadeth at one time, and he was like, well, can my brother, I'm only going to go if my brother goes.
Yeah.
He didn't need a, you know, and it may have been some other bands that offered him, you know, the slot as well before Pantera got big. So, but he stuck with his brother. They had that dream. They had that dream together to make it big together.
Yeah.
And they did.
I never see them in Megadeth though. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I guess that was, you know, right at probably, I guess that time period would have been probably like So Far So Good So What period or something maybe.
Oh yeah, maybe then. I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's totally two different styles of.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just from Dave to Dime. I mean, I don't see it clicking. Just being a musician, you know. I mean, Dave's kind of technical, and Dime had more of that blues feel to him. So I don't know. It would have been interesting.
But wow, I mean, I think we put together. What's that, Ralph?
I'm just saying, Dave Mustaine always had like a different kind of player as he had
Yeah, for sure.
He did change a lot. Sure did.
I think we really put together a pretty interesting episode. We started off with Caffrey in the very beginning, and we had some different people hopping in and out, and I think we really pulled off a very interesting, and it really makes you think about how much we all miss, you know, Dimebag, and now of course Vinnie Paul leaving us too. And you know, there was always that rumor of a Pantera reunion with Zakk Wylde, or you know, like a tribute to them. And I don't know if we'll ever get it now with both the brothers gone, but at least we have all their music to help us stay strong and in our memories. And I think we probably wrap this episode up pretty quickly, but I don't know if Jonny Mop or anybody's got a final word that they'd like to add. And Johnny, being the guy that I think is the biggest Pantera fan that I know personally, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. As we say, it's devastating to think what we could have if he had, you know, both the brothers still be here. You know, like the music that we still could have, and
what you might have.
I don't know if Pantera falls into the thrash category where they would go into the big four umbrella. That was something that everybody talked about. I went to both of those big shows in California and to Yankee Stadium, and everybody, you couldn't help but hear the rumbles. Like, what if Pantera was still around? And was Pantera considered one of the big American thrash metal bands, or were they something different other than, you know?
I think they created their own thing, really.
They were more of what you want to consider the groove metal, is what I've always thought, you know, like where Lamb of God.
Yeah, I don't see them associated with the big four. I mean, that was just more like an 80s breakout. But
I mean, if Dime was still alive this whole time, we might have seen a Pantera reunion again.
We
definitely would have.
I think so. Yeah, they would have gotten off.
Phil's out doing Pantera sets now.
And now Phil's still keeping it alive, doing the Pantera sets. Yep, and
that was great. That was one of the things I loved. Honestly, that was one of the last shows I was at. Was Slayer at the Garden and Pantera.
Oh yeah, you saw that at the Garden. So.
Yeah, that was great. I had to be there for that.
And then of course Chris got to see the final shows of where I think he was in early because he was press or something and got to hear the sound check.
I
did a meet and greet or something. I heard Phil singing with him, but
I felt very grateful to be there at the Garden, watching Slayer say their farewell, and at the same time, you know, hearing some Pantera classics.
Fucking Slayer, and I saw Slayer so many times on that tour, but that was when I was in a lot of stress of moving my store, and I just wasn't in to go into that show, and I wasn't as happy with the lineup, you know. But
fun fact,
you were complaining about the lineup. It didn't matter because Slayer was headlining Madison Square Garden. It didn't matter if Bon Jovi was fucking opening.
There you go. You told me that. Yeah, Ralph was mad at me back then. I still remember that. I got some hate from Ralph back then when this happened, and I'm like, well, I wasn't impressed the times on the tour already, but I did.
You did see him more than I did, so you went and seen him like 3 other times on that final tour.
Yeah, I mean, I got to see him the first one, way off topic, but with Digger, Dale Caldwell from Digger's Leather, and he got me backstage at the PNC with Behemoth, and we celebrated Orion's birthday. And it was Kerry King's birthday that night too, and I was backstage that night.
Still went to the last fucking night in New York ever.
Yeah, that's the one I didn't miss. I missed that one, but I got to see a bunch of great shows on that last Slayer tour for sure.
Pantera's last tour was with Slayer actually in 2001 before 9/11 hit. Pantera and Reinventing the Steel tour, Static X and Slayer.
Where was that at? Where did you see that, John?
That was I saw that at Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah, I don't think I caught that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was out in Long Island.
Yep, I saw Pantera out there with Prong and I think Sepultura and Nassau ones. But
years, yeah, before.
But anyhow,
I was with you at that, Steve.
you went to that one with me, and did Brad? Did you
Yeah.
go up to Knickerbocker Arena with me and Linda when we did?
Yeah, with Biohazard, right?
Yeah, with the pictures, we
Yeah.
did like the backs. We did I had
Yeah.
a meet and greet with Sepultura that night with Brian Lima from
Yep.
Epic. Yeah, yep, that was
Sepultura and Biohazard and Pantera. Yeah, that was an awesome show.
that was fun. Yeah, at the Knickerbocker Arena. So
Yep.
I'm getting a little weary
That was a good
because we've been doing 2 shows tonight, and Ralph was here for the 2 with us, and it was an epic night, and it was great to get in with some friends and talk about metal and see some faces, and very uplifting to me. A
Yes.
hell of a ride we've been on in 2021 and 2020, 2021. I can't even talk right now. But I'll tell you, if you like the channel, please hit subscribe. Mention your favorite Pantera moments. If you got to meet the band, if our viewers are still watching, because it's a little long show, but I'm sure. Please mention your favorite top, Pantera songs, concerts, and memories of Dime and Vinnie Paul with Hell Yeah and Damage Plan and everything that they brought to us over the years. And thanks to Tony tonight. Thanks to Ralph coming on. Thanks to Jonny Mop, my good friend, Brad Mader, and Denny Barth for making it at the end and telling that was amazing, some amazing stories. And we had Chris Caffrey on before. We had Steve Levin. Hope I'm not forgetting anyone because we did 2 shows in a row.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Steve. Thank you very much.
Hey, Steve.
Go to Rock Fantasy. Rock Fantasy rules.
Cowboys from hell.